The 2022 NFL Draft is just a couple weeks away, and in today's video, I thought I would start a new series in which we will take a look at all the draft prospects from a particular school. As the title and thumbnail suggest, we will be taking a look at the Georgia Bulldogs, and they have 13 players who could get drafted this year, and we're going to meet them, talk about what they've done in college, and how they could translate to the NFL. But before we can get into today's video, 80% of you guys are not subscribed, and we are on the road to 100k, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's talk about some Georgia football draft prospects. So the first guy I want to talk about is the gentle giant of Jordan Davis. He's probably the most iconic Georgia player from this past year, and Davis will more than likely be pretty iconic in the NFL, as he's going to be a top 10 pick. Davis recently blew up in the combine, but he was not always supposed to be this good. In fact, coming out of Mallard Creek High School in Charlotte, North Carolina, Davis was only a 3-star recruit. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 29 defensive tackle and the 424th best player in the class of 2018. That's why it's kind of shocking he's made this kind of impact. Well, kind of. The guy is 6'6" and an athletic freak, so it's actually not that shocking. Davis has played all 4 years, but his best statistical season came in 2021. This year he had 32 total tackles with 1 pass deflection and 2 sacks, and he was even getting Heisman votes. Personally, I don't know how you could justify putting him in the Heisman race. Based on numbers, he was not a Heisman candidate, but he had a huge impact on the Georgia defense, and his presence was constantly felt. His stock has never been higher, as he ran a 4.78 40-yard dash time at the combine, and now by most projections, he's going to be a top 10 pick, and I'm very curious to see what he's going to do at the next level. Sticking with the defensive line, the next guy let's talk about is Devonte Wyatt. Wyatt has a pretty interesting story. Coming out of Towers High School, he was a 4-star recruit and was originally projected to go to South Carolina. That did not happen though, as he eventually went to Hutchinson Community College and blew up into one of the top JUCO players in the nation. He ended up becoming the 6th ranked JUCO player in 2018 and signed with the Georgia Bulldogs. He's played the last 4 years, and his best statistical year came in 2021 as well. He finished with 39 tackles, 1 pass deflection, 2.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Going into the combine, he was seen as a day 2 or day 3 selection, but he had pretty good numbers all around the board, and I've seen him as high as the late 1st round, but most people think he'll be a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick. The next guy we need to talk about is George Pickens. Coming out of Hoover High School in Alabama, Pickens was a 5-star recruit and originally decided to stay home and play for the Auburn Tigers. That was until he flipped to the Bulldogs. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 4 receiver and the 24th best player in the class of 2019, and his impact was felt immediately at Georgia. In 2019, he caught 49 passes for 727 yards and 8 touchdowns and was a freshman All-American. 2020, his numbers did go down a little bit, as he only had 36 catches for 513 yards and 6 scores, but 2021 was going to be his big year, and he was projected to be a 1st-round pick. That was until he tore his ACL in the spring, and he only ended up having 5 catches for 107 yards, as he was able to play at the end of the year. Pickens has had great production throughout his career and has all the measurables and physical tools to be great in the NFL, but some will be worried about his year off from football and how he will recover from the injury, but he'll more than likely be a late 1st-round pick, if not a 2nd-round pick. Up next, we have Cine. For me personally, I know him best as the guy who almost killed Kyle Pitts in 2020, but Cine is more than that, and we'll likely hear his name called in the first 3 rounds of this year's draft. Unlike the other guys, he is from Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas, and he was a top 50 recruit and the 3rd best safety prospect in the class of 2019. Cine didn't play a lot in 2019, but he then started in 2020 and had 52 tackles. In 2021, he had 73 tackles with 9 pass deflections and 1 interception, and quickly became one of the best safeties in all of college football. Through a good combine and just good production, Cine is likely seen as a day 2 selection, but he apparently told the media he thinks he'll be a 1st-round pick. I got to see James Cook play twice, as I was at the Tennessee game and the national championship game, and he is definitely someone who is going to make an impact in the NFL. James Cook is better known as Dalvin Cook's brother, but he is definitely more than that. Coming out of Northwestern High School in Miami, Cook decided to go to Georgia and was a top 50 player in the class of 2018. While he had a lot of hype, his career started out pretty slow. In his first 3 years combined, he only had about 600 yards and 7 touchdowns, and many wondered if he would ever actually get an opportunity to start and be the main back. Well, he split time with Zamir White this year, but Cook had his best statistical season. He ran the ball 113 times for 728 yards and 7 touchdowns, and also caught 27 passes for nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns out of the backfield. While he likely won't be a franchise back, he is someone who will definitely be taken, and he has the potential to become a great player in the league. Speaking of James Cook, the other guy that he was alongside was Zamir White. White was in a little bit of a different spot than him though. He was the #1 running back, the 9th best player, and the 176th best recruit of all time in the class of 2018. He's originally from North Carolina, and Zamir had extreme pressure on him to perform. He ended up tearing his ACL in 2018, but as a redshirt freshman in 2019, he had 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it looked like he was going to take off in 2020. He had a pretty good year. He did finish with 800 yards rushing and 11 scores as a sophomore, and carrying that into 2021, he had an even better year. He finished with 856 yards and 11 scores and led the team in both categories. At 6 foot, he will translate to the NFL in terms of physicality, but if I had to pick out of the two, I would say Cook would be the better guy, but Zamir will definitely hear his name called in a couple of weeks. Travon Walker may have a higher ceiling than any other player from this Georgia team. According to Todd McShay, he could be a top 5 pick, and that is because of both a great career at Georgia and him recently blowing up at the NFL Combine. Coming out of high school, Walker was always expected to be good. He went to Upson Lee High School in Thomaston, Georgia, and was a 5-star recruit and the 22nd best player in the class of 2019. At 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, Walker started the last 3 years, but his best season came in 2021. He finished with 37 total tackles, with 6 sacks, and also 2 pass deflections. That doesn't scream top 5 pick, but with the amount of depth that Georgia has and his physical tools, Walker's the kind of guy who has not yet reached his ceiling. As I said, he's likely going to go in the top 10, and I'm definitely very curious to see how he's going to do at the next level. We have another Walker to talk about, and his name is Quay Walker. The 6'4" linebacker went to Crisp County High School in Cordell, Georgia, and he was a borderline 5-star player. In fact, he was the 2nd best outside linebacker prospect in the class of 2018, and he took that production to Athens. His first 2 years were quite slow, but in 2020 he began to turn heads. He finished with 43 tackles and a sack, and in 2021 he had his best year with 63 tackles, 2 pass deflections, and 1.5 sacks. Just like all the other players on this list, he's also a very physically gifted player, and he's had a good combine and will likely be a day 2 or day 3 selection. The next guy we're to talk about is a pretty big dude. At 6'4", 325 pounds, Jamaree Salyer went to Pace Academy in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. He was always seen as a big deal, as he was the #1 offensive guard in the class of 2018 and the 10th best player. He's also the 180th best recruit of all time, and he started many games for the Bulldogs. There aren't really many good statistics to measure offensive linemen, and even if there are, I don't really know about it. But what I do know is that Salyer is a big dude, he has a lot of starting experience, and right now he's projected to go in the 2nd round, so be ready to hear his name a lot. Moving back to the defensive side of the ball, Channing Tindall's name has been talked a lot about lately. Coming out of Spring Valley High School in Columbia, South Carolina, Tindall chose the Bulldogs over the home city school of South Carolina, and he made a big impact at Georgia. His most productive year came in 2021, as he finished with 67 tackles, with 5.5 sacks, and even a forced fumble. He was in a good spot after his senior year, but after impressing at both the 40-yard dash and his vertical leap, Tindall has seen his name fly up draft boards, and like so many guys on this list, he'll likely be a day 2 selection, and I'm very curious to see how he is going to do at the next level as well. Derion Kendrick was a 5-star wide receiver in the class of 2018, and the South Carolina native chose to go to Clemson. After getting buried on the depth chart, Kendrick decided to transfer to Georgia and change positions. In his lone year with the Bulldogs, he had 41 tackles with 3 pass deflections and 4 interceptions. He established himself as one of the best secondary players in the nation, and that's why many believed he'd be a 1st-round pick. Apparently, he did not do very well at both the Combine and his pro day, though, so many are wondering if he will fall to day 2. Either way, Kendrick has all the physical tools you could want in a secondary player, and he'll likely make a big impact at the next level. Like Jordan Davis, Justin Schaefer was a project player coming out of high school. He went to Cedar Grove High School in Ellenwood, Georgia, and he was only ranked as a 3-star player. In fact, he was the number 23 offensive guard and the 388th best player in the class of 2017. Schaefer would arrive in Athens, and both Sam Pittman and Matt Luke would do a great job of coaching him up. He did battle a neck injury, but he stuck with the program, made some starts this year, was a 2nd-team All-SEC selection, and will likely hear his name called at the end of the draft. Scouts say he's one of those players that's extremely inconsistent, as he'll make one great play and then have 2 bad ones, and vice versa. Schaefer will definitely be a project player at the NFL level as well, and we will see if he ever puts it all together. Finally, we get to our last player in today's video, and it is Nakobe Dean. He went to Horn Lake High School in Mississippi, and he was ranked as the number 2 linebacker and the 19th best player in the class of 2019. The 5-star talent had 5-star production. Dean would have 25 tackles and a fumble in 2019, and in 2020 he would break out. He finished with 71 tackles with 1.5 sacks, and he would establish himself as one of the best returning linebackers in the country. he would put it all together in 2021 as he finished with 72 tackles, 6 pass deflections, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions, one of which went all the way for a touchdown. Dean played so well that he was an All-American and is going to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. I have seen him as high as the top 10, but he'll more than likely fall to the 20s, and he'll get picked up and be an extremely productive NFL player. But yeah, today we talked about 13 Georgia NFL draft prospects, and while there might be a couple guys I missed, these are the 13 I wanted to highlight, and there would have been 14 had the whole Adam Anderson situation not happened. But let me know what you think. Which player out of these 13 will be the best? What school should I do next? And who is your favorite prospect for the 2022 NFL Draft? Let me know down below. Smash that like button if you want to support today's video and the channel, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.